welcome. So just a moment to settle. Maybe some conscious breaths. I thought we would begin with a little bit of reading from the book Karma, and then perhaps we'll see how things go. We can do a small sitting meditation as well, and perhaps this can be an opportunity to just allow what has been read to be absorbed. I know Mooji often mentions the word marinate and it's something that's vital when there's been enough talk and enough understanding. Then there's the anything left then is to actually, as you mentioned before, to be in the destination, to not always in the mode of trying to gain more understanding, but to know that there's enough understanding and it's just resting in that place, being in that place. So we are now on chapter 3, which is titled Karma as Memory. And I'll read the sutra as well, the thread that's going through this chapter. And there is only one crime against life: to make believe that you are something other than life. I'll read that again. And there is only one crime against life: to make believe that you are something other than life. So just see what sort of stands out to begin with reading. If it is volition that determines karma, the inevitable question is, from where does your volition arise? As we have seen, it is from your identification with the notion of separateness. From where, then, does this identification arise? From memory. You believe you are an individual because your memory tells you that this is who you are. Perhaps it would be more accurate and more useful, therefore, to describe karma as memory. Think about it. Everything you consider to be yourself is a result of memory. What you call me is a product, in every sense of the term, of your past. Everything that has ever come into contact with you through these 5 sense organs. Whatever you saw, heard, smelled, tasted and touched is there in your memory, influencing your personality. Every bit of memory that you gathered in wakefulness and in sleep is in this bank. Whether you are conscious of it or not, every cell in your body remembers and acts out of that memory every moment of your life. Life is telling you about your karma at every instant. The problem is that you listen only to your thoughts or to your neighbours. If you listen to the life process, no teaching, no scripture would ever be necessary. Karma is one big noise. If you cannot hear it, it is simply because right now you are accustomed to listening to the outer world. But once you learn to listen to your interiority, you hear the karmic din loud and clear. The decibel levels are so high, there's no missing it. Your body is a heap of food you have ingested over time. Your mind is a heap of impressions and ideas you have imbibed and processed over time. Both are creations of the past. Both are products of memory. So whether you identify with your body or your mind, what you call your personality is simply an accumulation of memory. The essence of everything you consider to be yourself is karmic. So perhaps we can pause there for the moment and see what comes up. So again, just touching upon the last line, the essence of everything you consider to be yourself is karmic. So yourself being the conditioned self. All of the energy that has been formed into impressions in that space of the illusory separate self, the me and my life. So we are all in this, I don't know if predicament is a harsh word, but we are in this place where there is conditioning, there is impressions, and now we are in the process of undoing, of letting that go, of detangling or untangling. And there is a sense of the karmic din that's loud and clear. We may hear it in our voice when we're reacting to somebody, or the most primal sense is thought. All of the impressions that are made are mental structures that are producing more thought, more narration. So now there is almost a cleaning up process happening. Of course, again, as mentioned in the start of this book, this is sort of looking under the hood. We don't necessarily need to dive into these infinite threads of impressions that have been made start undoing knots or untangling. There may be certain areas of life or where the direct awareness to that might be needed. It might be a certain habit pattern that particularly creates more karmic impressions, it creates more suffering. But the idea is in the space of awareness, when you are aware, just that simple awareness, the cleaning process is happening, the undoing is happening, without having to get involved in it, so to speak. So perhaps we can just acknowledge the simplicity of being in aware presence. That I wouldn't want to call it a side effect, but can't think of the phrase. But I guess things take care of themselves, things are managed. Where there is density in the space of awareness, the light will reach there and it will go where it's needed. And you can use your intuition when either reading a book or following a pointer. It's ensuring that you filter it through your own awareness and think, oh, is this right for me in this moment? Because each of our paths are so unique and individual in one respect, that you are your best teacher, you are your own teacher in that way. You know what it's needed, the intelligence inside of you that's in this form of body-mind, temporary form. It knows what's needed. So for some, for example, the dwelling and going into detail about this karmic substance or karmic impressions, maybe that's needed initially. For others, maybe you can almost no sort of thought or dwelling is needed further on that. You can just know, oh, that's the sort of karmic makeup, that's kind of what's happening here, and then you just step into the simplicity of the present moment and dealing with that. And for others, the delving in deeper into the analysis of this may be helpful as well. So perhaps for the next few minutes we can sense the contrast in the karmic noise, the noise of thoughts, the shapes, the initial feelings of desire, of wanting, of perhaps taking a shape, maybe even physically or mentally, emotionally taking a shape of something, and the contrast of being the shapeless, light, transparent awareness. And perhaps as you go on, you may see the edge of karmic energy moving in, of you taking an opinion, or there's a familiar line of software that runs, whether it's a thought pattern or a physical behavior. If there's perhaps maybe include habits or addictions in that as well. But you may sense it as an initial substance of karma coming in before it becomes clear that, oh, it's the thought pattern that's running. You may catch it very early. Almost like if there was a big lake here, even the smallest stone would be detected, the ripples would go and disturb the waters, the stillness. It's the same when the karmic energies are coming in that wants to act or proliferate through you, then that's detected, it's acknowledged. If you sense the heaviness, whether it's blocked energy, pain body, thoughts coming in, maybe mental structures, there's a sense of that, just gently acknowledge. You don't need to do anything more than that. Just allow it to be in a space of you, in a space of awareness. I've noticed as well when when an action is happening, whether thoughts or behaviors, that's in that karmic substance or energy that's acting, then there's a residue from that as well. There's a noticing of it when stepping back into awareness. Something is aware. It's almost as if talking about that loud din. That may become more in your awareness. For example, having a conversation with somebody, you get back to your car or back home, and you can sense maybe the heaviness from that conversation. That, wow, was I even present there? And you can sense maybe the impressions made from that conversation, the karmic impressions, and maybe the acknowledgement that I wasn't really there. Everything else was autopilot from my karmic software, the way I was replying and talking, and often you may sense a sense of heaviness, or you may feel more tired sometimes. That could be something that appears as well, or there may be a headache, or sometimes that could be a sign that there was a lack of awareness in that time, in that moment. Again, it's making use of this, disregarding what is not useful in this moment. So there's no strict practice or discipline in one regard. Of course, use that if it fits in at the moment as you go. And I've mentioned the word practice previously as well. It's almost a pointer to just because of language, it's obviously one sort of placeholder to engaging or inviting more in going to the place of awareness. But of course there isn't a practice. In one way it's ludicrous to call it that, because you are this. So if I bring up that word, maybe I'll bring it up less, potentially, but again, it's no set, rigid way of being, but just a pointer to your own, and even using the word effort, it's not, maybe to bring some space to that word or caution, but the energy you're bringing to your returning to your nature. And wherever your energy is flowing, go with that. There may be immediately a great deal of energy to perhaps work on a certain area. You may notice there's a sort of heavy karmic substance when you're talking to a specific person where you lose yourself more, so there may be a focus to ensure there's presence there and more sort of energy flowing towards that. And it might be even enjoyable and exciting as well. And again, I use the word, see it as maybe a challenge, a fun sort of play, to see, let's see what comes up and see if what happens when the awareness meets the karmic software that runs, and see if it arises within your awareness, or it gets covered and you go into that, and then you come out of that and see how that feels, how that is. And for me, there's always a noticing of how light it is being present, and everything that occurs in that space is more of what's needed. For example, what I say in that space of awareness, it's always more accurate, more what I want to express. And there isn't too much of something or too lacking of something else. It's just anything that's what's needed in that moment comes out, whether in words or actions. And for me, it's always a bit of an enjoyable game sometimes when I think about, for me it's very seeing, interacting with people. It's a big one for me where my automatic software comes up and takes over, and so there's almost a playfulness to it, to think, okay, let's, I acknowledge I lost myself for much of that interaction or that time spent in company, but I'm seeing, I'm going to be meeting somebody again soon, and that's really in an enjoyable way, in a light way, invite presence and soften in that and see how that goes. And again, you can see the contrast perhaps, and see how that experience is, see how that feels. What does that taste like? So I will dip into this passage as well. There is a simple way to check if you are increasing or decreasing the size of your karmic circle. When life situations place you in unfamiliar or unexpected terrain, what is your reaction? If you are asked to dress differently for an occasion, or if you find you have misplaced your keys, or if your footwear accidentally walks off with someone else, or if you check into a hotel and find you have to sleep on mattresses on the floor, how would you react? These are small triggers. Think of larger ones and ask yourself what your reaction would be. If the very thought of these situations makes you anxious, you inhabit a very constricted karmic space. I will touch on the passage just before this where it talks about the karmic circle. As karmic bondage builds up, you will naturally try to draw smaller and smaller circles around yourself. At the age of 18, most people draw large circles. By the age of 70, the circles shrink, and people find that they can get along with only a few. By drawing karmic circles, you determine the boundaries of your responsibility. As you keep shrinking at these boundaries, you are heading straight toward depression. And yet the human problem is that you are constantly labeling your bondage as freedom. So I guess you can see the karmic circles as our habits, as things become more rigid. Things become more constricted and tight and small in that way. And so you can imagine, as maybe someone who's 18, there may be more flexibility in the way things flow, in what life brings their way, and then later on in life you may see more complaints, more restriction in how to live life, more reaction. So again, it's a good check to see the karmic circle, our karmic makeup, the karmic density as things go in certain unexpected situations. What is the reaction? And it's again bringing the non-judging awareness, the compassionate awareness to it, and bringing curiosity to it as well. So there's no winning and losing here. For example, you may notice I'm more reactionary than I was some time in the past, and okay, that's a noticing there, and you can work with that. The attraction to one's own karmic patterns can be powerful, because most people experience a sense of safety in the familiar. Whether the patterns or cycles are small or big is irrelevant. Their recurrence can offer a sense of security, identity, and even power for those who fear the unfamiliar. So if you have to break the tyranny of karmic memory, our software, you have to crack the karmic substance. Otherwise, since you have come here as a human being with this level of intelligence and awareness, it is tragic to forego the great human power of choice. So it's the end of that section. So we are still in karma as memory, but we have concluded the passage, which is I don't know if I shared that with you, the title of the passage, the Mammoth Memory Bank. That's the first passage in chapter 3. So again, it can seem very daunting, the amount of impressions or karmic substance we have within us, but again, it's just dealing with the simplicity of the primary purpose, as Eckhart mentions, is dealing with just this moment. And you're not attaching to outcome, which will again maybe separate the power of your presence. You're diluting it by maybe there's a concern about the outcome of something, but you are just in that state of presence and being with whatever you're doing, losing yourself in that awareness, where there's no room for a thought to arise about, oh, what about the outcome of this, what's going to happen. Thank you for joining me for this episode. I'll speak to you again very soon. Take care.